All right. Well, hello and welcome to Module 6. And yeah, so this week, Module 6, it's about managing workbook data. So just a reminder, textbook start files will be on Module 6. We're going to download the modular exercise start file. And this week, we're going to, arrange workbooks, insert hyperlinks, group some data together, etc. And so we'll show you some of those steps. So here we are, we have the file. And again, you always have to enable editing. The first step we want to do is on the View tab. This can be a useful function. Say you have multiple worksheets and you want to be able to see both worksheets at one time without having multiple copies of the file. You could go under View, and over here we have window options where you can hit New Window. And then you'll see at the top, it now has the file name with a -2, which means it's window 2. So if I click up here and drag it down slightly, you can see we have window 1 here and window 2 here. How this helps is you could take one window, drag it to the side of one of your monitors. Apologize. There we go. And then have window 1. So you have the same file open twice. So for example, if I add a new sheet on the left side, you can see how it's added on the right side. You can be in different locations in both windows. Very helpful function when you have a multiple tabs. Sorry, something's not looking right. This is support file. Oh yeah, that's right. This is the wrong start file. That's a support file. This modular exercise, there we go. Support file will come to in a second. Download 6.1. And I knew something didn't look right. Enable editing. So this one we have multiple tabs. Here we go, View, New Window. Drag one to one side, put the other one to the other side. And now, for example, we can have North America over here and see Worldwide over here, and we're in the same file. You can switch windows by going to View. You can either click or you can go between these little tabs. You can switch windows all right here. So you can click the drop down and see the different windows that you have open in Excel. If you're done, you can always just close the relative window desired. You can also go, if you say you have all three of these windows that you want to see at one time, you can go Arrange All. You can tile them, and it shows all three files, which happens to include the support file. Other options, you can go Arrange All, say you want it vertically. So it'll split your screen in 3 accordingly. So it can be a helpful function. Let's close one of the windows of the modular file here. So we'll close this North American one, and we'll keep the worldwide one. That's that. That's page 1. That's how to have multiple instances of the same item. So let's go back to the worldwide sheet, and we're going to select E3 down to M6. Okay, and let's go to the Home tab. And what we're going to show you now is under the Format button on the far right-hand side under the Cells section, we have the option where it says Lock Cell. And if you look closely, it's got the darker button around it. That means they are locked. So if you were to protect the sheet, you cannot change them. So in this case, say January, February, March were actuals, we'll leave those ones locked, which is the default. We're going to turn off the lock by clicking that. So if I go back in here, you can see how the gray box is now gone, which means they are unlocked. If we protect the workbook, you will still be able to edit those cells without entering a password. So now let's go to the Review tab. Under the protection areas where you have some different options, do you want to protect just this sheet? Do you want to protect the entire workbook? And then you can also allow some edit ranges accordingly. In this case, let's click the Protect Sheet button, and then it'll give us options. Do you want to let users be able to select locked or unlocked cells? Do you want them to be able to format cells, perhaps? Do you want them to delete rows? Typically, most people just leave these first 2 boxes ticked off, but you might have situations where you want them to change format of the cell, but maybe not insert rows or columns. And you can enter a password if desired. I'm going to leave that blank. Remember, once you enter a password and save it, you cannot hack it. Okay, so be careful of that. We'll click OK. So now, for example, if we go back to January, which should be a locked cell, let's just try to type. As you try to type, it says, hey, you can't do that because it is protected. Let's go over to say F3, which is May. If I start typing, you can see that I can override that. Okay, so obviously it recognizes what you can or cannot enter. Another version of protecting the workbook is that button here, Protect Workbook. And this is to protect the structure such as the number of worksheets, the way the worksheets are ordered, etc. In protecting the sheet, you can still move sheets around, but in protecting the workbook, you can't even do that. So if I do that, then I can't even move things. I can't right-click and rename them, etc. Okay, so there's two different types of protection. Let's go back. We're going to turn off the Protect Workbook. And apologize, somebody's at my door. I'm going to pause. All right, of course, when I'm recording, somebody knocks at the door. Anyhow, to be continued. So we looked at protection and how to unprotect sheet. You just basically turn those buttons on and off. So you see how now it changes to unprotect and protect workbook. It's kind of weird. It doesn't say unprotect workbook, but if it's a gray box, that means it's protected. And if you turn that off, then it's no gray box. It's the color of your ribbon. Okay, just so you know how that works. So we're going to look at some views. So let's, on the worldwide tab, let's go to A1. We'll put our active cell there. Let's go to the view tab. In this left-hand side, we have different views. So in past modulars, we looked at normal view, the page break preview, the page layout preview. Oh, there's a custom view. So if you find yourselves modifying the layout, what's hidden or unhidden, or zoom characteristics, etc., and you're flipping between different versions, you can create what's called custom views. So if we click that, first of all, let's add a new one. And the one that we're going to call this is the year revenue. So it's everything displayed January, December. So you always want to change your workbook to look like the view you want, and then you'll save that as a view. So we'll click OK. And then say I want a Q1. So let's hide April to December. We'll highlight April to December, right click. And actually, I'm still in protection. Unprotect. Sorry, I forgot to leave that protection off. So highlight April to December. We'll right click and we'll hide. So we've only got first quarter. We go to custom views. We can add another one and we'll call it first quarter. Okay. So now instead of hiding or unhiding, go to custom view, your revenue, custom view, first quarter. Okay, very helpful for different purposes. You can have multiple views. Maybe it's split up by different managers, different quarters, year-to-date actuals with budget to variances, or year-to-date actuals with forecasts, whatever that might be. The custom views can be very helpful for different representations. So now say that we've finished a whole bunch of work and we were getting the file ready to share. So some of you might know that there are specific information, otherwise known as file properties or metadata stored with a file. So let's go to the File tab for a second, and we're going to do a couple of things. Let's go down to Info, and there's a bunch of information about the workbook. So say you're sharing it with other people and you don't know what version of Excel they're using or Office they're using. Sometimes there are functions in your version that might not work with, say, older versions of Microsoft products. So you have this option. You can look at check for issues. And let's go, first of all, for inspect document. Accessibility is another step we'll do in a moment. Inspect document. Okay. Make sure you save the changes. Yes. And then it's going to look for things like comments, properties, data models, etc. So it's going to look for all of these things that might be problematic if you were to share it. So let's hit inspect. It's going to go and tell us what it found. So no comments were found. There are document properties. Sometimes you don't want those document properties saved, so you can remove them all right from here if desired, and I'll show you where those are in a moment. There's no data model. There's some hidden names. Okay, again, all of these items might cause problems. Hit close for a minute. If we go back to the file info button, those document properties it's talking about is what's on this right-hand side. Okay, things like the size of the file, the title, any tags. Let's go to advanced properties for a second. You can see it has a subject, a title, got all the stats, contents, general information, etc. That's where the document properties are. So in here though, let's say we want to, instead of having the file name be the title of this document, we want to override this to say revenue, which we can do. And in the keywords, which are searchable, okay, can be helpful if you save a file on a network drive, you can have these keywords as searchable functions. North America revenue. And in the comments, just maybe we want to say the first quarter figures are final. So we'll hit OK, and you can see some of this information change. OK. And then another function is if you go, you're back under this file info, you'll see the protect workbook section. If you click that drop down, again, you can protect the current sheet from here, protect the workbook structure from here. But another function that might be helpful is, actually, we're not showing that yet. Protect, yes, this is what we're showing you, mark as final. So instead of adding a password and locking down the sheets or structure of the workbook like we did a moment ago, if you just want to give a little flag to people that open the file that says, hey, we think this file is done, you can click protect workbook, mark as final. Okay. We'll do then, it adds this little yellow bar on it, says final. So it won't let us edit until you hit edit anyway. So you don't need a password on it. It's just a little flag. It's a lot less restricted than protecting the workbook or worksheet. But for example, I go to type, I can't type anywhere, okay, until I hit edit anyway. All right, let's go back to edit anyway so we can look at it. We're going to look at inserting hyperlinks. So back to the worldwide tab, let's go to the A3 cell, and we want to insert a link button to another file. So we're going to go to the insert tab, and over near the far right-hand side, there's a link section. So if you drop down the link, you can link it to active files that you have. Okay, I'm going to insert link, and under my downloads, why is this not in order? Okay, I'm going to have to find it. Come on, I want to recent files. There we go, recent files. And here's my support EX6-2 file that we downloaded at the beginning of the session. Click OK. And now if you notice it changes the font with an underline. If you hover over it, it tells you what file it's connected to. And so if I click, it'll open that support file accordingly. Another function through insert links, instead of being an existing file, you can have it a place in the document. Very helpful, say if you have one page that you want to jump back and forth to other worksheets, you can say, let's make Johannesburg a link to North America. And you can specify North America, and you can specify the cell. You can also have a link create a new document. So if you click a button, it'll create a new document, and you tell it where to save the document. Or you can have a link for an email address. So you can say, click here to email your boss. You can click, it'll pop up an email, enter the email address, enter a subject, and then you can finish off the item. Okay. Let's see. Let's go back to the London, and we're going to right click. We're going to edit the hyperlink. So I'll say I made a mistake, but I still want it to the support file. But one of the other functions, you can display, do you want the word London to be something else? You can change that here under text display. Another function you might want is screen tip. So screen tip is what pops up if you hover over that link. So if I hit screen tip and then type division revenue, click OK, click OK. And now if I take my mouse and hover over, it'll say division revenue. So it just gives you a little tip on what that file link is taking us to. All right, let's go back to the file button, back to the info section, and back to check for issues. So one of the other features we did inspecting of the document is checking compatibilities. So sometimes we have people that we work with that might be, say, using a 97.03 version of Excel. Hopefully not too many, but if so, there are many functions that are in Office today that did not exist back then. So you can hit check compatibility. And you want to say, you know what, I think I better make sure it's compatible with everything back to 97, or maybe just back to 2007, or maybe just back to 2010. So you can highlight which versions. And once you've identified which versions you want it to be compatible with, it'll tell you what might be an issue. Okay. Sometimes in our work, it'll say, copy these issues to a new sheet, and it'll pop up a new sheet where the compatibility issues might be. It's usually something in SAM. So we've checked our compatibility. And we'll click OK. All right. Let's carry on. So let's go to the international sheet. And we're going to talk about grouping data. So grouping data gives you quick ways to basically hide and unhide data just by clicking the parameters of the level that you desire. So on the international sheet, you can see we have lots of data for the year. We've got quarters inserted here. We've got months. We've got our regions, etc. Let's highlight C3 down to E16, which is the first quarter. And we're going to go to the data tab. And on the far right-hand side is where you can add these groups or remove groups. So you have the group button, you have the ungroup button, and then you have the ability to enter subtotals. So in this case, I'm going to hit the group button. It'll say group it how. And in this case, we want it by columns. Okay, we want C, D, and E together. And so it adds this little layer so I can quickly hide and unhide those sections. Let's go to G3 to I16. We'll do the same thing, group, columns. Okay, do the same thing for K3 to M16, group, columns. Okay, and then O3 to Q16, group, columns. Okay, and we'll put our mouse back to A1. Now you can see we've got these little negative signs up here, which means collapse, or plus means expand. So we can collapse them this way and only display what's not grouped. Or you can hit the number buttons. Do you want level 1, which is collapse, level 2, which is expanded? Okay, so it'll automatically collapse or expand those levels. All right, let's click on the number 1 level. So we're only seeing the ungrouped items. Let's go to the File tab. Let's go down to the Options section. We're going to go to Advanced for a minute. And we're going to scroll down to see Display Options down here. And we want to verify that International is displayed. So Display Options. And we want to go Show Outline Symbols if an outline is applied. and then click OK. So my computer was already turned on. Otherwise, you would see some of these other functions appear or reappear. Okay. Another function, it doesn't go into it in the steps in the modular exercise, but on page 615 of the text, there's a little yellow box that talks about subtotals, which you will use sometimes in SAM. So you can see how we have North America, we have worldwide, we have locations. So say you have a bunch of data. I'm going to expand this for a second. And we want to add subtotals at a certain frequency. So let's click the subtotal button. It automatically assumes that we want this entire table. And where do we want the subtotals? So let's go for each change in region. So if we go down the list, so we'll have North America and worldwide. At each change in region, use the sum function. And we want to add it to, say, each quarter. Quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. And we want summary data below. We'll click OK. It automatically groups based on the break in region. It automatically adds a new row for those subtotals for each of the columns that we identified, and then a grand total. If you click subtotal again, say instead of sum, you want average, it will then do our average. If you want, say, minimum, it'll do minimum. Okay, just to quickly show you that. All right, let's go to Worldwide tab. A way you can work with grouped sheets. So right now we have a single worksheet selected. If you hold down the Shift button, click International. Shift means highlight every worksheet from where I was to where I clicked. If I ungroup this for a second. If I say I'm a worldwide and hit Control, it only selects the sheets I click on. Okay. So if you want to group sheets together, Shift will do everything from start to finish. Control will just do the tabs that you select. So I'm going to highlight all 3 sheets. This can be helpful. Say you want to do consistent changes in your header, footer, things like that. Yeah, you want to group sheets because then you only have to do it once for all 3 or 10 sheets. But be careful. For example, say I've got all 3 sheets highlighted and I type testing in this cell on the Worldwide tab. If I go to my other tabs, it puts it on all of them. So you could override things by mistake. So be very careful with grouping. Let's go to the Home tab. We're going to go over to the Insert button on the far right. And actually, hold on. We're going to go to row 2 first. Select row 2. So highlight row 2 with all the sheets highlighted. Tab. And we're going to go Insert. That'll insert a new row. And in A2, we're going to type revenue. We're going to highlight A2, M2. We're going to merge and center. And we're going to right click on Worldwide, ungroup sheets. So now we've only got 1 sheet highlighted. Now, as we go to each our worksheet, you can see that cell is consistent on all 3. One thing you'll notice is that JCL, the International tab, goes over to column R. So in this case, you might want to actually change the merge on that case to be across all columns. Okay, but again, I entered revenue on all 3 tabs with only doing it once. All right, let's go and highlight all 3 sheets again. And we're going to, let's go to the Insert tab. And on the far right, we've done this before, header and footer. So in the header section, let's type center header. Let's put our name. Okay. I'm going to click in the box and click in the sheet, go back to normal. Let's go Control P to see what the view looks like. So you can see M little, page down, M little, M little. In this case, you can see how the formatting is broken off pages. So maybe I want to go, fit sheet on 1 page. So now I've just got 3 pages. Okay. So by highlighting the multiple sheets, you can change page settings, header, footer settings, all of that all at the same time. Let's go back to the file, click on worldwide, now we're ungrouped. And that's basically the stuff we wanted to cover today. Hopefully you found this helpful.